this was last night. I've just literally come in and into the studio, and I thought, oh, I'm going to fix bits and what have you, and I'm not. I'm not. So if you saw this one last night, this is the. There's another Instagram image, I think. Yeah, it was. Pinterest. What's the difference? And the things that happened, that there, all of this. I mean, even the eyes, the hair, and you saw if you watched it, the ear came from nowhere, and it was suddenly this black blob, and all of a sudden. But this is. I'm going to use another piece. I've been sharpening up the other pieces of yesterday's burn, or I think it was the day before now. But this stuff here, this is happening here. This almost wash-like tonal blend. It's not really a blend, but it because it retains some of the the lines within it. There's not a fuzziness about it. I was talking about yesterday with the comparison to the Shopbo branded stuff. So this thing that Picasso supposedly said, you never know with these things. I mean, I think he did say the thing about being able to draw like a child or paint like a child after 60 years or whatever. But I think people mostly misunderstand that as a way of, his production, which is kind of leads into the, to draw, you've got to be able to, you must close your eyes and sing. The idea that being able to draw like a child, for me, the way I interpret it is that that he has that childlike, curious connection, as opposed to the means. But most people who are locked into, as someone said, that because I know how, that I focus on the why, which is not true. But most people believe that kind of thing. And I think this comment about to draw, you must close your eyes and sing. I think what he was saying was that stop focusing on the doing part of it. The structure, whatever, the methods, the rules, all that kind of stuff. Focusing on that and just have fun doing it. I just seen somebody doing a very famous artist, a great illustrator. That's all he is. Oh, that's what he is. All is the wrong way to describe it because he's incredible. But drawing, and he proclaimed the portrait, proclaimed that it was from life. You know how they do. It always put on the end, from life. And why does it look like a dead person? You know what I mean? Where's the life in the drawing? You may have been doing it from life, but you never put any life in the drawing, and that just infuriates me. I think there's one of the biggest sort of myths about this. You must do it from life in order to, to capture whatever. I think that, and the people that promote it are the people that promote the mechanical. You understand the dimensions better, you understand the form better and the light better, and so what better? It's like if it's got no life in it, it's not better at all, is it? And that's what, as I say, just infuriates me when people say that. And I think that's probably what Picasso was getting at. This idea that you use your mechanical understanding and the engineering, engineering the head and the sorry, let me just get this nailed down. I can then ramble on. But this idea that you'd use the knowledge and the as I said, the mechanical understanding as some kind of which people do as some kind of way of doing it correctly. Sort of. It can only be correct if we've got the bone structure right. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of great artists out there, a lot of great painters out there that have little or no understanding of anatomy and yet create incredible works of art. But and there are equally as many, that do know about and create representative works of art. So I refrain from using the word great, because I don't think that just because someone can mechanically replicate that they are a great artist. It's not a, it's not a, and this is the thing. I think that's what people don't get. It's like, when you first come to it, I've said this before. When you first come to it, you've got this perception of what it should be, and if you're lucky enough, you'll ignore that, perception of what it should be. But most of us fall foul of that perception of what it should be, and we get sucked into the way of doing, and we forget to close our eyes and sing, because we're too busy trying to do it in a certain way, in the way that we're told to do it, because this is acceptable, and what you're proposing isn't. I mean, that's probably the thing about the Picasso statement. That's completely unacceptable. To close your eyes and sing is like, why on earth? And I think he was probably speaking in a kind of, not in a literal sense. Yeah. So as I said, and when I drew that, I'm going to edit that. You may have seen that line from last night. I'm going to edit that and put that up, because I think it's a good one. Because and it's good, because one of the things that I suppose I noticed more when I don't know if it's more connected or more more in tune, I suppose, because I'm talking about singing again now, but more in tune with what, and it's the charcoal that's the, for me, this homemade charcoal that's that unlocks the key, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's a consequence of the charcoal, or just simply a consequence of my focus being shifted. Because when I'm drawing with the shop box stuff, I'm pretty much conscious all the time. I don't know, my light's just gone out for some reason. Let me just. I think that's going to have to be it. I can't get it to work, so you're going to have to. I think it's all right now, even though it's not quite as bright as it was. So I think that as I said, the problem is that I'm conscious of what the charcoal is doing, and it's to a point where I'm considering it. Considering what it's doing at some point, and whether or not it's doing what it should be doing. It's it just becomes I'm conscious of it. I think what happened with that last night, I wasn't. If you'd watched me ramble on about this one, I wasn't really conscious of it. It was the end of the day after having done, what is it, 3 or 4 of these, and the kind of mark making was completely subconscious. It was a creative conscious thing. So the mark making was just there wasn't any consideration of the mechanics of anything, and consequently it evolved like it did. And I come back to it this morning and I think I don't need to change it. I with the shop bought stuff, I always feel as though I just need to refine something or whatever, because it's all about the lines. And with this, it's not really about the with the charcoal, it's not really about the capabilities of the charcoal. In fact, it's the opposite, because the charcoal's not really got not in terms of, if you were using, say, something like nitrile, where you've got a consistent, tonal value and all that. You don't have any of that with this. In fact, it's the opposite. But I think that's probably why it works, because it doesn't have that consistency. And if I'm prepared to let it happen, i.e., I'm quite happy to close my eyes, then invariably it works, which is a weird thing. I think that's probably one of the early drawings. If you look at the ones I did a couple of years ago, there's a lot of that. A lot of marks that shouldn't be there, and really go against how it should be treated, and so lines going in the wrong direction. So I still do it now, but it's certainly with this stuff I do anyway. Not so much with the Brander stuff, but as I say, I can't explain what it is. I don't know why it is that as you can tell, I don't know why it is that the charcoal has such an impact on me and the way that I do this. And I was hoping for it not to be the case, and which is why I want to. People ask me about using using branded stuff and not homemade stuff. What do I recommend? And that's why I was kind of hoping that I could sort of, and to some extent, I am capable of doing it with other charcoal, but I don't get the impact in the same way. This kind of thing here, where it's all wrong around there, but what's happening is it just seems to be right. And as I say, I can't explain what it is. I think it's that, again, I think it's the me closing my eyes and singing thing. It may well be, as that person said about in the comments, that I'm so my how to do it is so habitual now that I can focus on the non how to do it, the essence thing. It's not true that I think the fundamental thing, and I know this to be a fact, is that when I connect with a subject, when I feel that emotion of the subject, it's more unlikely to impact on or it will definitely impact on the way that I treat it, the way that I make the marks, and everything about it is affected by my emotional connection with it. So, and that's not a why. I think the why is to some extent, it's just because I have to. It's that kind of why, or that kind of reason. I don't like the word why. I think it's, and only because it's the nonsense that we used to do in the 90s, when that guy used to do those videos about self-improvement and finding your why and all that kind of. It's the only reason I don't like it. It's not because it's a bad word to use, but it just reminds me too much of all that scammy stuff. But reason's probably a better word for me. And it doesn't seem so, I don't know, commercially motivated. The why thing is, reason could be the same. I want to feed my kids could be a good reason for doing it. So yeah, it could still be commercially motivated, but I just prefer to use it. I think if you want to call it your why, then fine. I think one of the things about the homemade charcoal as well is that you can see. I think it would happen with any charcoal, but it generally it you can see how it changes its shape, and I think there's a tendency with some people that they'll reach for when it becomes the requirement to make something finer or more accurate, like that. It's a tendency to reach for something that's sharper, or even to sharpen the charcoal. And I think that the less you can do that, the more that you can just work with the way the charcoal is, the more likely you're going to not get sucked into the detail, and you're going to make marks that are more effective. Precise is not the right word, but more effective because of their inaccuracy or just not controlled. This thing about making marks that are more, that imply more rather than suggest, and suggest more rather than accurately illustrate. I think that's the other thing. If you look at some great painters, and I know I always sort of talk about Sargent and his suggestion and implication, but it's true. If you look at his paintings or his drawings, there's lots of suggestion and implication in those, and that it could be the fact that he uses bigger brushes than rather than smaller brushes, or he works larger, or whatever. It could be many things, but I think there's this need to illustrate. So therefore, you've got to, like the guy that was proclaiming that he'd done it from life, and it looked like he'd done it, traced him from a photograph, that kind of thing. I think it's that desire to illustrate, and that's back to the Picasso was saying about we should close our eyes and sing, so that we get away from that idea that it's just it's as far away from a replication as possible. That's not to say it won't be realistic. That's a different thing. But replication is copying. It's what people are trained to do in their masses in various institutions. It's a thing. We'll teach you how to copy anything. What I mean? Well, actually, they just say we'll teach you how to draw anything, but what they mean is they will teach you how to copy anything. Which to most people, that's exactly what they want. So I can't knock it. It's not a problem. It's a problem for me if that becomes the definition of what art is. A good copy. But it doesn't. That's what a lot of people think of it as. It's a good copy. Well, they don't say that. They don't say. But it does get in the way of doing it. It does get in the way of any kind of expression or response. Because you're too busy worrying about whether you've got a sharp enough tool, or whether or not you've got an exactness of things to really allow yourself to create. Again, back to the closing your eyes and sing. Somebody asked me the other week, and I did a podcast, wasted time podcast, but it was all right. It's because they for whatever reason, focus on my approach, my joyful approach, because that's one of the things I developed, the joy principle, and they focus on that rather than, why that is important, in respect to me doing this. It was a bit, yeah. Anyway, enough said. But they asked me about painters, or artists that influenced me, and my knee-jerk reaction was Picasso. And partly, I think that was more of a Freudian slip than anything else. It was because of this thing, this ability to see this, and understand at a deeper level than just the production. I mean, the guy was taught by his dad to draw, and he was supposed to be a protege, but his dad was a great artist, so his dad was a good replicator. So, it helps, doesn't it, if you've got a dad that can do it already to show you how to draw, which is what happened with Jackson, actually. And he went, and that's when, he went to uni, and they told him that drawing wouldn't get him a degree, so realistic painting wouldn't get him a degree. They sort of downgraded it because he could draw, which is bad, isn't it? But as I said, I'm talking about Picasso and his depth of thinking. I think that's probably why I said that Picasso was somebody that maybe it was a bit of an influence, as I suppose Sargent was. Not for what you think, not for the portrait stuff, but for his watercolors. That was a massive influence on me. And he's probably the reason why I stopped, because I was infuriated by the fact that I couldn't do it like him. And I am one of those people that thinks they can do anything. My missus calls it the astronaut syndrome. When people think they can do anything, and they give themselves a title. Get on LinkedIn and look at the titles that people give themselves. So yeah, she calls it the astronaut, and I've always thought that I could do anything I wanted. So if I put my mind to it, But I didn't realise that trying to do it like Sargent was exactly why I got a problem. Not that I couldn't do it like Sargent. It was the fact that I thought that doing it like somebody else was the right way to go about doing this, but never the right thing. But as I said, with the Picasso thing, I think I was picking up on all this deeper, meaningful stuff, not his work, and which is what I think this interviewer took it as. The other thing about the homemade charcoal is this, the way that I'm figuring things out and where I'm finding stuff. If I was using the because it's slightly it's hard but soft. I can't explain the density in relation to something else, but because of that, if I was using the stuff I bought, it would gradually become mud. It would gradually become just a blurry grey, and then you sort of chase the thing after that. You chase the range. So once you get once you're committed fairly to elements or to tones with the shop bought stuff, as you're trying to figure out where everything is, and I have to push things around and try and figure out if the eye's in the right place and all that kind of stuff. Once you start doing that, the brander stuff, it becomes just a blur. It just becomes, in painting terms, it would just become like mud. But with this, it doesn't, and it maintains I can still maintain the crispness of things, the crispness of the lines and the definition. And like I said yesterday about the reason why I wanted to shift back to the homemade stuff because the line integrity, or the way that they retained some of the lines, the marks with the more definition. And it's that, I think it's that part of it that helps me to, I think the ear was probably a good example of that yesterday. So the ear, as it's turned out now, apart from that, looks like he's got an earring in. How it's turned out was this evolutionary thing, and it retained its integrity about. If that had been the stuff I'd been using before, that would be just a grey mass. There is some staining. Charcoal tends to stain, as you can see, but that's probably more to do with paper. But I wouldn't be able to carve that with any kind of definition. It would still be a grey mess if I'd used the branded stuff. I mean, it's not a good brand, so it may well be that was the problem with it. But it's all I had, so I can compare it to. I think as this evolves, I think it's going to be because she's got this big fur collar on here, I think it's going to be one of those painting like drawings. It's definitely going to have a background on it, and possibly the fur collar, the stole that she got on, worked up a little bit. It comes down there and then up there like that, and then round like that. So it's probably going to have that on it, and then I just need to see one of the things that's happening now. You can see it. There's this imbalance of tones. You see that there. And then here. I think the beauty of this charcoal is even when you take it away, it still has a like it's doing it there. It still has this quality about it. When I first started doing this, I always thought it was a bit like painting. In that, you sort of gradually focus in, and it is. But I think the other part of it is this unexpected thing, this serendipitous thing. The marks that as you take something away and suddenly realize that what's left behind is exactly what you were looking for, that kind of thing. That it feels more it feels right. I think that's, I don't know if, as I say, I don't know if that's my charcoal, whether or not you'd have to, because I was thinking about, if you were trying to find something like I said last night, you have to, I think you'd probably have to experiment with different brands to find out if there's something that does this kind of thing. I don't think you could I'd say, oh well, because this is why I was using the stuff I bought, because I was trying to help people that were trying to find a charcoal that would do this kind of thing. I didn't look very far. I mean, I only went sort of Winsor and Newton and Reeves and Nitram and what else did I get? And then the others were, there was one or two I got off eBay that were just probably made in somewhere in China or something, you know, and they were pretty good. They didn't really say exactly what they were. In fact, one of them, was it me or something, MY, something like MY. I did have a tube with it. I don't know what happened with the tube. I might have given it away with some of my charcoal on it, but it's all it said on it was vine willow charcoal. That's what it said on it. So it was both. I think that's probably to cover all bases. It's a marketing ploy. I think that's what that was. But that was the closest that I found to what I use. But that was very. It could have even been compressed. You know, it was so regular. I got a piece of it around somewhere. It's quite a thick piece that I've got left over. No, I thought I had. Oh, here we go. That's it there. That's it. It could be compressed, that, because there's nothing to indicate that that's a twig. But that was the nearest I found. But I can't, as I say, I can't remember what happened to the tube. I got it off eBay, and it was really cheap. But that was the extent of my effort. But I tell you, there's John Farinov, I think his name is. I always pronounce him as John Farinov. We talk sometimes. He's an amazing charcoal artist, but he does, you know, he knows his stuff about charcoal. And he's got PDFs that you can download about how different charcoals work, and it's really good. So it's not like this. I mean, he doesn't draw like me, but which is kind of the point of what I'm trying to make, I suppose. But anyway, but he will give you an idea of what different charcoals do and when to use them. So check him out. You'll find him on Instagram. It was one of the first people that I saw when I came to doing this. He was one of the first sort of charcoal artists that I came across. Him and Oliver Sin. And in a way, it was what he did or what he does that was part of the reason why I wanted to do what I did. I knew then I didn't want to make photographic copies or photorealistic copies. And John would say straight away he doesn't, but fortunately they're very realistic. Which is, I wouldn't take anything away from him for that fact, because he's just a master, really. If you can use that word. I don't think he'd like that word either, but because of its connotations to craft, you know. It's that. You see what I just did then with that, and just being able to just make a mark and then smudge it, and you've got this is I said yesterday, I'm getting very anal about charcoal, but you've got two kinds of smudging and it's not blending, but two kinds there. The harder one there creates that smoother blend, and then that smoother tone, and then the less hard there creates a darker tone. So you know, that's probably my practice, my having practiced this so often that it does that. And then if I can't quite get the tonal value that I need, then it'll be I'll resort to just a few lines of hatching. But I think that and what's happening with the mouse, particularly with the mouse, is very painter-like. It's very, you know, it's you can see that in a lot of old or master type paintings. There's that there but not there kind of feeling about it. All of it, really, you can see it's happening everywhere. And when it happens like that, the hardest thing is not to fix it, if you like, because it's not quite right. It's not quite a line that it should be under a chin and things. And it's very hard not to fix it. Very hard not to fall into that trap that it should be more realistic, more accurate. Another reason why not switching charcoal when you need to, or to a sharper device when you need to, so you learn to accept the marks that you make. I've still got issues with tonality there. The difference between this being the right tone across the top there, across the forehead, is minuscule. It's tiny, the difference between it feeling right. And you can see it's just, even with a few marks on it, you can see it just starts to get into the right place. I still need a better definition at the top of a brim of a hat there. I still need that. But that's more I think that's more to do with the shape of it. It's that shape there that's the critical thing. And then obviously I'll fix the tones on the hat and get the hat the right size, because it's not quite the right size yet, so it doesn't matter. It's kind of up there like that. I'm just looking at this distance from here. If this is the band, look at the distance from there to there, and then down to there. It's the tone of it. It's not the right. It's too light. So it's throwing my visual assessment out a little bit. But yeah, that's better. I'm trying to, when I'm drawing hair, and there's these inner strokes that are visible because of the slightly darker. I'm trying to do that in there, so it gives it a little bit more variance in the line. I've got to sort out the mouth a little bit, because it's just not showing up right. Yeah, it's a little bit actually being punched in the face a bit there, so we'll fix that. Be all right for now, I think, until I get to yeah. Like I say, it's a little bit more like painting than for me than I have to say that, because it sounds like I'm saying it is, but it's just, from my point of view, it feels more like painting. I always think, when drawing with charcoal, the headline on the thing, I think, well, I think that's the last thing I want to do with charcoal, is to draw with it. And yet it is drawing, to most people. Like I say, I think this is going to be kind of a background on itself. Just give me a bit more to work with in terms of defining the edges of things. Yeah, you see that there? I can work that out. I'm not sure how dark this is going to be, or whether or not I'm going to make a big deal out of it. I think sometimes it's enough for it just to be a tonal background. I think one of the main things I'm noticing now, the nose is a bit too pronounced. This bit here, there. Sometimes the edges of the nose it's sort of it's invisible, and I'll take it out sooner than try and draw the end of it, draw the side of it. Again, it's the sort of anti-illustration thing. If it becomes too illustrative. The sunken eye thing is she's actually got eyes like that, but it's a bit too hoodie. You see, it looks like she's been boxing again. She's got a bustle lip and a black eye. Yeah, we'll push the eyebrow up a little bit. Not much, but it's yeah. She looks a bit worried, mind, and I think she looks like that in the reference. I'll stick the reference in the members area, by the way, so if you want it, Kevin. I know you always want the references, Kevin. I will. I'll put them up. I promise. I think you draw more than I do. I think you've got more time than I've got to draw by the number of drawings you do. One of the problems with working from screens is the illumination thing. The back projection thing. Things that are really hidden, if you like, from sight, often because of the back illumination thing. You sort of see them lighter than what it should be. If anything, that's a downside to the working from photographs. I think that the danger is when you work from fixed photographs. I saw someone doing it today. I was like, I don't know if you've seen this, where they're commissioned to a portrait and they get a photograph of the person life size and they stick it on the canvas and then they just literally copy it, directly across it. That seems to, I think it's a commercial thing. That it's like a very predictable, outcome type of approach, because you need that if you're gonna sell. You're gonna have to guarantee an outcome so you can get paid. But I think the only downside I see with that is that because it becomes such a literal copying, that he loses the marks that he was making were very just, they were invisible marks. They were invisible to the in the portrait itself. There was no, back to this life thing, there's no life in the marks, and I think that would be the danger. I'd have that problem. I mean, if I put some, I've got it very close now, but if I had it side by side and I was making those direct comparisons, I'd have a terrible time trying to get life into the marks. I'd have to, I'd have to do something. And I think that's when you get into the technique. People think that loose marks and all that sort of thing is an expressive marks is all about technique. It's all about response. It's all about your response. That's what it's about. But people get into the idea that they can change the brush or whatever, or the strokes change or whatever, and it becomes more looser. Not until they've actually made it very accurate sometimes. I suppose the easiest way to do it is not to have the, if you don't want to make it accurate and a copy, don't have it next to the blooming photograph, and then you wouldn't fall into the trap of making, an exact copy. But as I said, commercially, I think that's what most people want. They want copies of people's faces. They don't want some interpretation, some crazy. What the heck's this? Oh, it's Picasso. Oh, that's all right. Then he can draw me however he wants to draw me. You know what I mean? It's like, you could never be. And then there's the other ones, the ones that show them, you know, on a floral background or with a unicorn in the background. There's those ones. It's like it's a mad world, mate. It's a mad world. And I think what I like about it most is Jackson bought some paints yesterday off of. We've got this thing in the UK called Vinted, and the people sell all kinds of things on there. Somebody was selling some paints, so really cheap oil paints, good stuff, you know, Winsor & Newton stuff in an old, you know, those, what they call them, boxes, begins with a B. Anyway, one of those, and the person then said to Jackson, "Are you an artist?" And he said, "Yeah." And she said, "Oh, I am as well." And Jackson said, being the person he is, "Send me your stuff. Let's have a chat and, you know, connect." And she sent him these drawings, fan art, charcoal fan art, basically, or graphite fan art. And then she said, "Can you send me yours?" And he sent his, and she said, "Wow, you're a proper artist." Because it's, you know, it's surrealism, and, you know, understanding that stuff or you know, relating to that stuff is it's a different game. It's not a, oh, it looks like a person kind of thing, you know. And what struck me was this diversity. You know, they like, you know, we all can do it. We can make, you know, create. I love all that. You know, there's so much room for everybody to do it in there. And what saddens me is when it becomes a production, that people just think it's I've got to produce this like this. Like my friend who does commissions, and all she says is that people want the detail. People want a copy of whatever they send, and she'd much rather, you know, do it her way, have her, you know, have her own sort of stamp on it. And that, how sad is that? You know, she has no time to do it her own way or to do her own thing. But you hear all the time, people, you know, commercial artists will say, I do, you know, I hate doing commissions, but I have to do them, and I prefer to do it my own work, my own thing. But that's so sad, as I say, to think that people have to do, we have to be like sort of caged animals performing, you know. It's ridiculous. I've not even seen that definition of what I think art is, and part of that is the entertainment thing, and which is, you could say, that is the same thing as making replicas. People want to be entertained by artists. A lot of people, this is the reason why I don't get the views, because this is not entertaining. To some it might be, but generally speaking, I'm not wanting to entertain people. So, and YouTube's geared up for, you know, entertainment. But that's how it is. You know, that's how people see art. They see it as a and to some extent it is. You know, you wouldn't be watching the shows on the TV if it weren't for creative people. And they, you know, there's an argument for it being entertaining. But I'm more interested in what I get out of this than what you get out of this. So it's not entertaining. It might entertain me, but it's not really for. I'm not doing it to entertain you. Despite what people think and say, and some people do say, you know, I love to watch you draw and all this sort of thing, and I always think, I don't care. I don't care whether you love to watch me draw or not. I'm not doing it for you. Yeah. This is some of the stuff that happens, and I've no real control over this sort of thing here. You can see how this is this, and some of this where the like with the nose, and I said about the nose, some of this where the things intermingle and intertwine, and edges get lost, and all that sort of, all of that is part of the the way that the charcoal works. You know, this sort of thing. I generally don't know. I don't think it's just my skill or style or whatever. I don't think it's that. I don't want to think it's that. I want to think it's in the moment kind of stuff. You know, it's like because of the my response. And back to the singing thing, I think that's probably what, because I ramble on these videos, and I'm not conscious of drawing. I've said this before. Sometimes it does feel like somebody else is drawing while I'm talking, which could be the singing. You know, it could be the forgetting what you're looking at and just, or closing your eyes rather, and it could be just the creative consciousness taking over. I mean, imagine trying to define, I talk about creative consciousness. Imagine trying to define creative consciousness. They can't even define consciousness, let alone the creative consciousness. So, you know, it's one of those, I suppose it's probably more of a spiritual thing than it is a logical or explainable thing. I think it's probably because there is an emotional element to it. Although it's probably an emotional element to consciousness as well. So I don't know. Don't want to go there because I have no idea what I'm talking about. Yeah, but I just love the way things evolve like this with the charcoal. I think there's probably the one thing that has triggered the way I work and how I work and how often I work and all that. I think the one thing has been the way that the charcoal responds. So I think that's the secret with the charcoal. Find a charcoal. Don't sort of settle for the charcoal that you've got. If it could be it's right, it may not be, but it's worth trying to see whether or not there is something else happens when you try a different charcoal. I said before, I'm not tool dependent, but at the same time, I don't think the tool should get in the way. Right, as I said, this is probably going to be a nice sort of painting, I think, a painting feeling about it. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to spend time in evolving that, fixing a few things, the cheekbone in there, and I may tighten up the mouth, but I'm quite happy with the mouth. Apart from it's a little bit too definitive there, but the rest of it I'm quite happy with the way that's looking. It doesn't worry me there at all. And then I wanted to build this up, the fur collar thing. I wanted to make that a thing. I just have to make sure that I get it looking right in terms of the scale of it. And then I'm going to put a lighter tone on the side and then bring out the hair on that side as well. Still there's a tonal issue there. Like you can see, it's not quite dark enough to be under a hat. That's better, isn't it? Almost. It's a lot better than that. A lot better. You see this charcoal doing the light. So when I'm building tones like that, putting the charcoal on for me isn't what you'd normally do with as I say, the shop watch stuff, where it'd be kind of a smooth gliding blend. There is an element of of a, see, it's not doing it there. There's an element of breakup of the line. So it has a more of a intermittent feel about it. So there's an unevenness about it as it's applied, but it's going on without any effort. And that's kind of one of the critical things that I want. And it's sometimes very, because it's dark in places and solid in places, and other places it's quite scratchy. It has a different way of applying the charcoal to the surface of it. So building up the tones could at one point feel like, you know, when you get a pencil and it's a, you know, you're gradually building it up with graphite. At some points it feels like that, and at other points it does feel like you're applying, you know, a large quantity of charcoal. But yeah, it's one of those things that I say, it's a little bit difficult to describe what it's doing, the things that it's doing around there, and you know, the mouth, for instance, and all of these things. It's got a very traditional feel about it, you know, around the nose, what's happening with the nose, and that painterly feel about it as well, which is, I would think that back in the day, though, they didn't have such refined charcoal. They may even be making it themselves. So some of the great artists that we know that made drawings, apart from when they used things like silver point or whatever it's called, you know, that thing that you scratch away with, and the other one, sanguine, whatever that is, I've no idea. That's just red stuff, right? If you know what it is, put it down below, or I'll ask ChatGPT and see what it says. But yeah, I would imagine people use less refined tools. That's what I'm saying, and possibly why they ended up with it feeling the way it did. Right, as I say, I'm going to just carry on with this, and yeah. So I'm talking about the singing thing, and I just think what he was trying to say was basically don't get locked into the doing of it so much that you forget to feel about it. You know, you get to feel about how you and why you're doing what you're doing, and how, you know, why feeling about it is more important, or the emotional side of it is more important. Anyway, that's how I interpret it. So it might be wrong. I might be completely wrong, but I get that. I do get that. And as I said before, the feeling thing is how you feel about it is the critical thing for me, as much as and it's the decision you make. You know, I just decide that that's right because I feel it's right, not because it looks right. I just feel it feels right. It's the reason why I stopped working on something. It's because it feels right. So anyway, I'm going to stop rambling now, and I'll catch you later.